Hey, Rebel Bankers, this is your host, Chris Noggle, and welcome back to the show. I'm really excited to have today's guest, Jack Bosch, on because, there's so much to this, but he's got the nickname of the land guy. And we're going to get more into Jack's story, all about Jack's business, and you guys are going to get some incredible golden nuggets out of today's podcast. But before we get into Jack's story, let's talk about all of you. Let's talk about your journey to becoming a Rebel Banker. That journey involves getting knowledge. It involves seeking out knowledge, and it also involves you taking action on the knowledge that you get. And therein lies one of the most important things and one of the most missed things. See, the person that said knowledge is power missed the boat, because knowledge isn't power without application. It's the application of that knowledge that matters. So folks, I urge you all to take action on what you're trying to do. On your journey to becoming a Rebel Banker, it's the action that matters. So I'm gonna motivate you. I'm going to give you something for free, but you have to do one thing. You have to do one thing to get this. So I'm going to give you a copy of my book, Mapping Out the Millionaire Mystery. And I'm actually going to sweeten that offer, and I'm going to give you this book too, The Private Money Guide. You can have both of these books for free, but here's what you got to do. You got to go to my website, chrisnoggle.com, 2 swipes with the finger and click on free book. That's all you have to do. I know it doesn't seem hard, but you know what? That is you taking action. If you apply that kind of action to everything you do in your life will explode, your business will explode, and you will become a Rebel Banker. So with that being said, Jack, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me, Chris. I'm excited to be here.
My pleasure. So let me just give a quick little thing, and then I want you to tell everybody, but Jack Bosch is the land profit generator. That's the name of his company. He's literally a foremost expert in land investments. So I'm intrigued by land, because land is that one thing they're not making any more of. So we're going to really dive into that. But the thing I like is he's known as the land guy. No tenants, no toilets, and no termites. I don't know where the termites came in. We don't really have them around here, but I liked it. And the Forever Cash Life podcast is his podcast. So Jack, can you tell my audience a little bit about your business, what you do? And then after that, let's take a trip back in time and talk a little bit about how you got where you're at today.
Sure. So that we have lots of termites where we are here. So I live in Arizona. There's only 2 kinds of houses, those that have termites and those that will get termites. So that's how we usually say it. So the house I used to live in, we had to put in a barrier like of anti-termite stuff like every few years, because they would just eat their way through. And it was a very nice home. Anyway, so yes, my name is Jack Bosch. I'm originally from Germany, as you can tell. My I sound like Arnold, even though he's from Austria. But I can say California very well, right? So very well. I came to so what we do is we flip land like other people flip houses. So in other words, land flipping is a simpler way of real estate investing for cash and cash flow that can really turbocharge your bank account, for that matter, right? For bank account. So it's not a technique where you buy and hold. Usually you can buy and hold land if it's in the path of growth, right? But usually it's a cash making and cash flow making technique that a lot of our students and ourselves, we use that as the cash machine to produce rapid cash. And then we use that cash to then invest in other things. Of course, first using your strategies of infinite banking and so on, right? To rebel banking, as you call it, and put the money through there. But then also, we basically then invest in like in apartment complexes and things like that. But most people make the mistake that they rely on on one income source, and that is their job, to build their financial wealth. Well, what we have figured out, what many people have figured out, but particularly what we are focusing on, is that if you want to truly build financial independence, you got to play offense and defense, right? You got to go and you got to build something that spits out cash rapidly and as quickly as possible. Obviously, there's going to be work involved, and that you then use, and then you have that to pay off your debt. You live a little easier, better life. and then you have actually assets to roll over into other assets, right? And the way we do that is land flipping. And land flipping is really the simpler way of house investing, because you can do with land, you can do everything you can do with houses, except for rehabbing it. And that's a good thing. You can do almost everything you can do with houses, just without the number one complicating factor in real estate, which is the house. Right. So you do everything else. So you can wholesale houses, you can wholesale land, you can retail land, you can sell a finance land, right? We sell a lot of our land, we sell a financing, and it produces pure passive cash flow because there's nobody living on it. Nobody destroys anything on it. Nobody vandalizes anything on it. No appliances break, no roof, no tree hits the roof. Or so if a tree falls on a piece of land, it's one tree less on a piece of land, but there's no roof that's damaged. There's no walls that's damaged and so on. Right. So you can do everything the same way. The benefit of land flipping, though, is that because we are dealing with an asset class that a lot of owners don't know what to do with, they're willing to let those go for substantially larger discounts than house flipping. So we typically focus on pieces of land in the outskirts of town, in a more larger acreage in rural areas, or also in the cities as infill lots, like lots where there's like most lots are already built out. There's a few empty lots that are ready to be filled in. Focus on those. And we typically get these properties for anywhere from 5 to 35 cents on the dollar. And then we turn around and we double, triple we mark them up by kind of 100, 200, 300%. And we go sell them for 60, 70% of market value, either as a wholesale deal. So let's take a $50,000 property. You get it on a contract for 10, you go turn around and sell it for 30. So you make a $20,000 profit, but because it's still a bargain deal, because it's worth 50, you're selling it for 30, it flies off the market. Or we take that same $50,000 property, put it on a contract for 10, sell it for 50 with a $10,000 down payment. So we get as a down payment what we paid for the property. And now we're producing $500 a month cash flow for the next 12 to 15 years. Right? That's our two models, and that's what we do nationwide, because land, the beauty of land is that it's 100%, you can do it 100% virtual because you don't need to inspect anything. There's nothing to see. There's like a few trees and some dirt. There's nothing to look at.
I love that. And one of the things you said, you were like, and you don't have to deal with the number one problem, which is the house. And then in my mind, I'm thinking contractors. You also don't have to deal with contractors. And
contractors, lenders, mortgages, like mold, roof repairs, foundation repairs. I mean, we own rental properties because we like houses. I just don't want to flip them. I want to buy them and hold them and have good tenants in them and pay forever. And we're owners or part owners of over 700 apartment units. So there's nothing wrong with these things. I was yesterday in Oklahoma City looking at an apartment complex that we own and meeting with a management team there and so on. So nothing against those, but to make money, you want to keep things as simple as possible, right? And if you don't have to deal, if I never have to deal with another contractor in my life, that's a good thing.
Listen, I'm right there with you on that. Not only contractors, no more building inspectors, none of that nonsense needs to be done. And I love this model. I always have. And, I almost wish I could go back in time and just put all my energy into this versus doing all the flips that we've done in the past, because this just seems like a path to making the same amount of money with a heck of a lot less work. And it's a heck of a lot more scalable because you don't have as many outside forces fighting you all along. Because flipping is brilliant as it looks on TV, and we had that show on HGTV. It looks great in 23 minutes, but the reality of it is it's a pain right in the beep. You know what? It's just a nightmare. So I love what you guys do. Now, let's before we dive too much into the mechanics and some of the things I really want to ask questions about, how did you get where you're at? Like, how did this all start? What was that defining moment where you're like, hey, we're going to start buying land and flipping it and wholesaling it? Where does that piece come in?
That came in to really coincidence. So my wife and I, again, we're not from here. We're from Germany. And we came, I'm actually from Germany. My wife is actually from Honduras, Central America. So she's an immigrant to this country too. We met in college here. We were both here to finish our college degrees or to do our college degrees, me to finish it. I started in Germany. She went to the full 4 years here. And we both got jobs. We stayed here in the country, got work visas, got jobs, and ultimately got the green card. But we And now we're both American citizens. But we realized halfway through that job thing that it wasn't like we were both working weekends. She was in finance, so she had month-end stuff. Or if the month-end fell on a whatever it is on a Saturday, hey, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, you were in the office. She was in the office working till midnight, getting the financials ready because the CFO needed to, or the CEO needed to see them Monday morning, right? And with and I was working for a software company, and I was working in implementations, and we literally started at 8 a.m. and went to 10 p.m., grabbed some kind of late night hotel dinner. I literally gained 15 pounds in 3 weeks traveling right now at the beginning. Now, part of that was me being excited of being out of college and having an expense budget and being able to eat burgers and steaks all day long. But that got old very, very, very soon, particularly once you got sent out to some customer, because it was 100% travel. So I jumped on an airplane Monday morning, came back Friday night, totally exhausted, and we just didn't like it. So we started looking around. And then we got started being sent to places where the best hotel in town was a Holiday Inn Express with ants walking up crawling up the wall, and I was like, this is not what I signed up for. I don't want to do this for the rest of my life. I don't want to be separate from my wife for the rest of my life. And some of my colleagues had been living that lifestyle for like 15 years. And I was like, they didn't even know they're teenage kids. They weren't there for the childbirth of their children. They weren't there for the first day of school. They weren't there for their graduations. They weren't there for the celebrations. And I was like, that's not going to be me. So we started looking for something different, and came across real estate. But within real estate, there's so many different ways you can do it. You can tackle that. So the first thing we came along was the houses, right? The first thing we found was house flipping, was rehabbing. So we started coming across some programs, and we went through those programs and learned the language, and we bought some books and bought an infomercial products from a midnight infomercial, and we drove around town. The first thing we learned was driving for dollars. So we drove around looking for boarded up houses in like neighborhoods with some value in it, and we found some, and we contacted the owners, and we got one owner to accept our offer. But what it turns out is that we had everything calculated wrong. Every single repair estimate was wrong, because again, coming from Germany, construction is different, costs are different, like everything is different. So I didn't know if it cost $3,000 or $30,000 to replace a roof. I didn't know if it cost $2,000 or $20,000 to replace a kitchen. I didn't know if there's what electric work costs or what any of these things, no idea. So we estimated everything wrong. We put that thing on a contract. We tried to wholesale it, and we couldn't sell it. And then we did the luckiest thing in my life, which is we backed out of that contract, and instead of going deeper into it and actually buying that thing. Because if I would have bought that thing, if we would have gone into a rehab, we would have lost our shirt to the tune of, I think, now almost like $40,000-$50,000 we would have lost. With what
that would have been and that was your first deal, right?
Well, yeah, but we didn't do it. We would have lost.
But money. That would have been, that probably what I'm saying is.
That would have been the first deal. And that would have been scarred for life.
Yeah.
And that would have never gone back to real estate investing.
Exactly. That's what I was getting at. If you had done that first deal and did it wrong and gone through with it, that probably would have been it. You would have went right back to software.
I've been really yelling off the rooftops that real estate is a crappy investment, that you should stay away from it, that it's horrible. And I would have never looked at it again. Luckily, we backed out of the deal, and then we tried different things. We came across tax delinquent, tax liens, tax deeds, learned all these different things. And ultimately, we found that concept that through the tax lien world, we found the concept that people don't pay their property taxes anymore. And we started, like, we had this thought that we saw these auctions happening. We saw people attending, hundreds of people attending these auctions. And it was like, man, these properties that come up on these auctions, a tax lien auction or tax deed auction, or these liens that come up, or the properties that come up, they have already owed property taxes for 5 years. Like, what happened to these owners? Why do they? Well, if they don't, these owners apparently don't want these properties anymore. So there should be here a situation where we should be able to go and if these people truly don't want these properties anymore, why do we have to wait 5 years before we can contact them? Couldn't we just go and contact these people right now and see if somebody has 3 years, 4 years worth of back taxes, they obviously don't want the property anymore. Why don't we just send them a letter? So we started that and we started getting some answers. And the funny thing is, every answer we got was a piece of land. So nobody with houses called us, but all the landowners called us. They just wanted to get rid of their properties. Like the first deal we did was a property worth $8,000 that we got for $400. We're like, wow, $400, 5% of market value. I mean, what can go wrong? Like worst case scenario, somebody's going to offer us $1,000 or $2,000 for the deal, but now there's a risk. If I looked at before we would have had to buy this property, get a construction loan on it, get contractors, then we would have lost $50,000. Here it's like, what's the worst that can happen? The worst that can happen is that this property is butt ugly and that nobody buys it and we lose $400. I can afford losing $400, but I can't afford losing $40,000. But what's more likely to happen if you really get a property based on comparable sales in the area at 5 cents on the dollar? Really, the worst case scenario is that somebody's going to buy it for $1,000 or $2,000 and we make triple our money. Well, what happens is we bought it. We went to the property, drove up to it. It was a couple of hours from here, and we put it for sale by owner sign on there. The neighbor comes across and buys it right on the spot for $4,000. Offers right there. It's like, oh my God, I've always wanted to buy this property. Here, what do you want for it? And we're like, I don't know. And he's like, well, what do you offer? And he's like, how about 4,000? We didn't even negotiate. We're just like, yes, let's take it. Right? Shook his hand. Didn't even have a contract with us. I had to go back home, find a contract and mail it to him. He signed it and he sent it back to us, or email it to him, and he signed it, sent it back. And then 2 weeks later, he bought the property for us for $4,000. And so on and so forth. And in the process, we did absolutely nothing to the property. And then shortly afterwards, we also realized that 90%, almost 90% of the properties that we bought over time had actually no back taxes. So the back taxes is like a niche that helped us find it. But in reality, we found that there is tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of landowners that really don't want their properties anymore. They just want to get a few dollars for it, 5 to 35 cents on the dollar, and they just want to get rid of it. And most don't owe back taxes. So now we don't even look at that anymore as the back taxes. We don't use it as a criteria anymore. We just take properties in the value of $500,000 to $200,000. That's our sweet spot in the three kind of areas on the outskirts of growing cities, larger acreage in attractive rural areas where people want to go spend their weekends on, or infill lots in growing cities that we can pick up for 5 to 35 cents on the dollar. We don't even buy them anymore. We only lock them up now and sell them right away in a double closing or an assignment or use transactional funding. So our students do deals without using any money. And since then, we have done over 4,000 deals, just my wife and I and our team. And our students have done thousands and thousands of deals more than that.
I mean, I'm listening to this, and if my audience isn't getting excited about this, then there's something wrong with them. Because everything that I hate about real estate, and believe me, folks, I've done enough real estate to make an assumption of what I like and what I don't, all comes down to the house, like you said. All the things that come along with the house, the problems, the building inspectors, the contractors is all eliminated, but you're doing the exact same thing we've been doing for years, but without all those issues. And I'm thinking about it, like land is very valuable. I mean, usually neighbors want to buy land, but they, like you said, like it's just a vacant lot. No one ever puts the work in to figure out who owns it, and you're locking these things up. Now, how are you going about finding buyers? I mean, is it just the signs out front? I'm sure you teach all this, but I mean, is there like one little like golden nugget you can give about, because I'm looking at it, I'm saying, wow, I'd love to go out and find land, but then like, I don't want to get stuck with a whole bunch of land. Right. Yeah.
So the way we sell it is really simple. We go and we use these websites that are fully accessible to anyone out there, which is, where do people go? Let me ask you right back, Chris. Where do people go to look for real estate online?
MLS.
MLS, where else?
Craigslist, Facebook. I mean, used to be newspapers, but not so much anymore.
And one missing, Zillow, right?
Oh, of course. Yeah, I was kind of lumping that in with the MLS.
Right. Zillow is an extension to the MLS, yes. And in a way it is.
Mm-hmm.
But in another way, it's not, that you can go on Zillow and just submit your own property or submit the property of a contract and just have it show there and so on. That's exactly right. And every single one of the ones you just mentioned are free. Now, if you're not a member of the MLS, you might have to go to a listing to a service like brokerlessmls.com and pay $199 to list it there. But you don't have to, because Zillow is free. You can put your properties on Zillow, costs you nothing. On Facebook and Facebook Marketplace, costs you nothing. On Craigslist, costs you nothing. The key, though, is how you structure your listing. Like, a lot of people have done that. A lot of owners nowadays think like, well, let me put my property on Craigslist. But what they do is they do the listing wrong. So what happens is, what they do, and even realtors, they hire a realtor, and most realtors are trained on how to sell houses, not how to sell land. So as a result, what the realtors do is, like, on a house, you can do all these things. I have a real estate license in Arizona. I don't use it. It doesn't help me with my business. It doesn't hurt me on my business. I just use it so that if I do place a larger investment, I can save myself tens of thousands of dollars of commissions, right? That's what I use it for. But on the land side, a typical house realtor, if you list a house realtor knows you can stage the house, right? You have the photographer come doing the sunset, beautiful lighting, right? You create beautiful pictures about it. You stage the house. You do an open house. You go a broker open house. You do all these different things to move that house very quickly. Well, you can't do any of them in land. Like, you're not going to stage a piece of land. Well, you're going to put some furniture on there. It doesn't really work that well, right? you can take some nice pictures of it, but at the end of the day, it's still going to be pictures of a bunch of brushes, a bunch of trees, and a bunch of grass, and a bunch of rocks, and a bunch of sand, right? So it's not really pretty pictures. You can not do an open house on the piece of land. I mean, who's going to show up, right? And so on. So realtors don't know how to market a piece of land. That's why what most of them do is they take land on, let's say the neighbor has a piece of land. It's like, hey, you're a realtor. Can you list my land? They're like, sure. And what they do is they put one aerial picture of Google on there, and they put a 2-liner, and they put it in the MLS, which then syndicates it over to Zillow. And what you get is a picture that is a listing that is butt ugly and boring. And as a result, then they don't offer any seller financing. They don't offer any discount. The realtor tells them, I think the property's worth $80,000. They put it up $80,000. And the reality is, land market at market value for cash only takes 6 to 12 months to sell. So they sit that thing on there with an ugly picture, no description, or barely any description. The thing doesn't move. Right? That's the reality. And that's what people think. And then the listing expires. And then our letter hits, like, I don't know, 6 months later, our letter hits, we send them a letter, and they're like, well, yeah, nobody wanted my piece of land. You can have it. You want to offer about $15,000? Yeah, sure, take it. So they allow us to put this property that truly is worth $80,000 under contract for $15,000. And then what we do is we create a listing that makes the property pop off the screen in a matter of like 7 days or so. Not always 7 days. It takes anywhere between 2 days and 7 weeks, but it usually is fairly quickly. And what we do is we create a listing in which we tell a story. We create a listing where we show what's around, because people don't buy land because they like the tree is on there. They don't buy land because they like the sand, the quality of the sand or the dirt on there. They buy land because of what they're planning to do on it. And we've identified that we have either the people that buy the land because of its location close to the path of growth as an appreciating asset. We buy people who buy land because they want to build a house on there that they then retire on, right? Ideally, those are the properties like 10, 20 miles outside of the city. They want to know, they're just, as long as there's land, as you can build a house on there and it has some utilities, what they care about is not what trees are in the house, not what sand is on the house, what dirt is on the land. Not on the house, what dirt is on the land. They care about how far is the next doctor away? How far is the next grocery store away? How far is the next movie theater or restaurant away? So if you can show them that this property is within 5 miles of this town where there's a Walmart and all this kind of stuff, and within 10 miles of a hospital, within 5 miles of a gas station, and within 3 miles of the next interstate, and in an hour you're at the airport, then they're like, well, this is perfect for me because I got my piece. It's an affordable piece of land that I can build my retirement home, because they realize they can't retire in style based on the level of saving that they have, because most people haven't saved enough. And now your listing looks amazing, and it's not hard. It's just following a formula that we have in our program for land sales. So that's how we sell them. We use the same platforms as everyone else does, but we're creating a listing that's head and shoulders above everyone else. And it's not hard. It's just following A, B, C, D, E, 4 or 5 steps. Actually, it's 4 steps that you follow, and you create a kick-ass listing. I'm sorry, I don't know if that's allowed to say.
You can swear. That's fine. Kick-ass.
No,
that is pretty damn.
I mean, that's about.
That is kick. Yeah, but that's nothing. Kick-ass is the right word for that. And
we're creating a beautiful listing that appeals to people, appeals to their dreams. And the properties sell in many cases. Like one of our students just 6 weeks ago sold 3 properties, and he got 3 deals on in 6 weeks. And one of them, he put it out on Monday night, and by Tuesday afternoon, he had over 100 inquiries about that property, and and multiple people submitting offers on it. And it even was a property that had some issues, like the road access was a little difficult and so on. But the location overall and the listing was so great that people just jumped on it, jumped all over it.
You know, I just love this. And like now you brought up another thing. So that's all intriguing. And I agree. I've looked at tons of land because we've been looking to buy land to possibly build, whether it's apartments or just single family houses. And, you know, every single time the realtors, they do, it's an aerial shot and you don't even want to look at it because you're like, what is this? What's around this? And then you got to drive out there and then you're like, oh, I don't like this neighborhood. But like, if you just show that and tell the story in the description, like what a difference. It's just marketing 101. But for some reason, realtors don't want that. They want the house to walk through. So that's genius.
Yeah. So they want that. And then the other beauty of it, because it's land, you don't ever have to look at the property because the pictures you still get them from Google Street, Google Maps, Google Aerial, Google Satellite View, Google Street View. If it's on a major road, you can just drive your virtual car with Google Street View by it and take pictures of it. Or Google Earth, you can create a little movie. Even if not, just take a nice picture of it. Or there's services of people that you can hire for a few bucks to go out there and take actual pictures of the property if you want actual pictures of the property. But the bottom line is we now have students from all over the world. We have students in Canada that started in February when the pandemic started, and so February 2020 when the pandemic started, and by August of 2020, so 6 months later, they had made $500,000 in cash flow and equity on those deals that they had flipped from Canada without even setting foot into the United States. Because this works best in the United States because it's easiest to get access to who owns the property and their contact information and so on. We now have students. My own brother, after watching us 18 years do that, finally got started. He has 16 deals under contract from Germany, and 2 of them are submitting offers this week right now. Wow. And he has not been in the United States for pretty much 12 months right now. And he's been only doing this for like 3 or 4 months right now and has 16 deals under contract. So we have students all over the world that do this inside the United States because it's a truly virtual system, because because even in the house wholesale, if you wholesale houses, somebody still needs to be going inside that house to estimate repairs. Even if it's not you still got to arrange for somebody to meet the seller, to have the door open, to walk through the property. You don't have to do even that on land because there's really nothing to see.
You know, the other thing too, so like the flipping part's awesome, the wholesale part's awesome, but you know what really intrigues me, and you mentioned it earlier, but I'm gonna bring it back to that, is the seller financing. So, right. You know, you got this property under contract, you put it out there, everybody just, you know, assumes they have to pay cash for property, but now all of a sudden you offer, hey, just give us a deposit, which is what you paid for the property, and we'll finance the rest. But then you figured out when you had me on your podcast that, wait a second, so I can make money a couple more ways by just changing one thing and putting that money through this infinite banking concept, this policy, and then I use the policy to buy the land. Now I'm making money here and I'm making money over here in cash flow. So it's just like, it's such an easy system. And I can't believe that, well, I'm embarrassed to say that I didn't look at this before, but now I am just incredibly intrigued in that portion because it's the best cash flow. Take the property.
We're both embarrassed because I was embarrassed that I've done land deals for years without utilizing your system, right? And now we're customers of yours and we're using the system, but we're super excited about it. But for years I could have done that. I could have, for every bigger deal or for every deal that we bought or so, I could have done it that way. And there's some big deals that we bought that we could have processed through that. Oh well, that's water under bridges. I'm still young. I can still do it. I'll still do this for another 30 years or so. So there's plenty of opportunity to do more of that. But on the seller financing, they don't feel bad, because it's the same thing with land flipper. Like, you know how many people flip land? Nobody. Right?
Yeah, I know. Nobody.
Right? You go to a real estate investor association meeting, there's 300 people there. There might be 2 land flippers, and chances are I trained them both. Right? So it's the last hidden secret in real estate that's in front of everyone, but nobody sees it. Right? It's just how it happens. It's just how it is. And even though we have been teaching this for 12 years, there's probably 500 full-time real estate land flippers now in the country, or perhaps 1,000, but there's 3,000 counties in the United States. That means for every full-time land flipper, there's between 3 and 6 counties where they are the only game in town. And that's why this is like there's no problem in teaching this. We can help so many people be successful because we're not creating our own competition. We can teach this for 100 years, and then potentially at that point of time, when I'm 150 years old, there might be a little bit competition, but there's none. There has been none 12 years ago. There's none now, and there won't be any for the next 20 years or 30 years or 40, 50 years. So it's not even on the radar of most people. But it works really well, particularly the seller financing, because now banks don't like to lend on land, right? Banks don't typically lend on land. So if somebody wants to buy that $50,000 property that you have on a contract for 10, or that $30,000 property that you have on a contract for 4, and you tell them, yeah, I can sell it to you. If you give me $6,000 as a down payment, which is 20% of the $30,000, then I'll be happy to let you pay off the rest over 5, 8, 10 years in monthly payments. You make the rules, because you now become the bank. You select the interest rate, you select the monthly payment, you negotiate that with them, and they now pay you every single month. And what it really does, it actually triples or quadruples your profits. Because if you take a deal,
my head's exploding. Like, you take that and you roll that through the banking system, and
right, you roll that to the system, exactly. Now you receive those, and you make those your monthly contributions to that, and you do that on a bunch of these things. And because let's say you take this deal on a contract for $4,000, you got a $6,000 down payment. That's already more than what you pay for the property, right? So you can do that without even using any money of your own pocket, by using what's called a double closing or an assignment, or a double closing in this case. And then you design it such that now they pay you $400 a month for the next, 6 or 7 or 8 years. On average on that deal, you should be making about a $40,000 profit, versus selling it for wholesale. If you would have just wholesaled it, we would have made like a $12,000 profit or so. So you almost quadrupled your profit on it, and you turn it into the purest form of cash flow, which is cash flow from somebody that doesn't even live on the property, so they don't vandalize it, they don't destroy it, they don't do anything to it. So then you roll it through your process, exactly.
Yeah.
And
it multiplies your money. Hey, money multiplier multiplies your money, and does it right through Jack Bosch's program, The Land Guy, and the Land Profit Generator. I love it. And here's another thing I'm thinking. So as you're talking, obviously my mind's always working. That's the way I think. And I'm thinking to myself, I only have so many hours in the day. So I couldn't do this because I'm too busy with everything else. But this seems like such a systematized process that you've created with your company and your trainings, that I could literally hire somebody. Find somebody that's good at real estate, that understands the basic area, hire them, put them through your training, have them create this division within our real estate companies. And now all of a sudden that division probably will feed the other divisions, because now all of a sudden you got the land. I mean, that's the way I'm looking at it. And I'm looking at it that gives me the ability to now use my banking systems to fund the land, to do the seller financing. And basically then I've got a completely passive revenue source. And all I needed was one person to go out there, go through your training, go through your system, and now then it self-completes.
And that's exactly what some of our students do. Now, most of our students go through it themselves. Mm-hmm. And we do recommend that you go through it themselves, at least through the education, so you know what the person that you hire in is supposed to do and what they need to do. And you know when they're doing something wrong. Obviously, that's just good management principles to make sure that you know what is being done. But this model has been done. But first of all, you can tackle this from multiple angles, what you just said. You can do exactly what you just said. We also have extremely busy people that still do this themselves because they automated almost everything. Right? Our business is set up such that there's a spectrum. You can do everything yourself, like everything yourself, or you can outsource or automate almost everything, like 90 to 95%. So we have students on all levels of the spectrum. We have students that have very little money, but they have time. So they go and do that themselves, everything, right? We have students that are extremely busy, that have a business mindset, and they do exactly what you said. They hire right from the get-go. They hire a virtual assistant, or one of our students got to his college buddies out of their jobs. Well, he did it first for a little bit, proved the concept, made sure that he made like $600,000 in 9 months, and then he's like, okay, good. Let me go get my college buddies out of college. They hate their job, and he's like, brought them in as partners in this case, taught them how to do this. And now they're basically doing a three-way split. He only makes a third of the money, but he makes nothing. He does nothing anymore, right? So the two guys just run this all day long. They do all the work, and they split like perhaps half of the profits, and he gets half of the profit. I don't know exactly their details. The third way you can do that is one of our students is a United States Air Force officer, extremely high up in the Air Force, right? He used to be commander of an entire country of our American troops, an entire country where they're stationed right now. He used to be in charge of some extremely important things in the United States. He wanted to prepare. He came to us about a couple of years before his, at that time, intended retirement. And he says, like, I don't want to go into retirement and then not know what to do afterwards. So I want to create this, figure this out right now, automate it to as much as possible, so that when I go into retirement, I got a second income source that now continues feeding a family. Then his pension was probably very good too, but still that an additional income source. So what we did with him, because he constantly travels around the world and is in extremely high level meetings, international military meetings, you just outsourced everything. You outsource the letter writing, the letter sending, you outsource the call center. You hired a virtual assistant to do the deal analysis and make the offers. He hired somebody, that same person or a second person, created all the listings and put them out there. And all he did is he said, let's go into this area, let's offer this amount. And he said yes to incoming offers about dollar amount. So it's 3 decisions that he makes. Everything else is outsourced or automated to team members. And with that, he had so much fun. He did 24 deals while he was stationed in Europe, leading the United States military forces in one of these countries that are currently actually where the U.S. was in war, kind of with or assisting other countries in a war situation. And while he was there, he did 24 deals from Turkey, right? And so as a result, he saw this is so much fun. He needs so little time after putting it in place that he actually extended his service years for another few years, because he's like, no, I can make all this extra money while still being continuing in service and going up to potentially at the general level or so.
And right now, with everything that's happening in the world and the States, I mean, you got COVID, now you got the resurgence of COVID here in New York. We just shut down today. So no more restaurants, no more gyms. So everything's shut down. There's going to be an awful lot of people that are looking for things to do. And this seems like just such a perfect thing. I hope a lot of people watch this episode and really pick up on the opportunity that is right here, because, with real estate being at this high point next year, there's going to be a lot of people sitting on land that are just looking to make some extra money, and they're probably going to sell. You were talking pennies on the dollar. I think that's going to become a big reality next year.
Yeah, and COVID actually, that's the other funny thing. COVID actually helped us tremendously.
Yeah.
Now, 2018 and 19 were fantastic years, but COVID has driven people out of the cities. Like, who wants to live, no offense, but who wants to live in a vertical, in a high rise when you go down the hallway, your neighbor comes out, coughs, and you contract COVID, right? People are afraid. There's such a density. They want to move out. People there's builders like Arizona is always where I live. Is always a fast growing city, but also Phoenix or Atlanta too. From articles I've read, like the builders on the outskirts of town, they were doing okay prior to COVID, but they're sold out now. Like everyone went like immediately went out to the outskirts. And our lots in like the infill lot builders don't have enough land. They're trying to build, right? Our infill lots sell very quickly. In the outskirts of town, cities are growing. People want that 2 acres where they can have dogs, where they can run around, where the kids can play around without being afraid of anything outside of town. And just like there's a movement back into the rural, a little bit more rural America. So while 2018 and 19 were fantastic years for us, 2020, 100% increase on everything, 100% increase, completely off the hook. At the same time, when COVID hit and Arizona shut down too, where we live, our life was not affected to the slightest. I haven't looked physically at a property in 13 years because what is there to see? I don't have to look at trees and bushes. I can look at them on Google Maps. Our company is completely virtual. Our own land selling team is international. They're in the Philippines, they're in Texas, they're in different places. It doesn't matter. We have worked from home for the last 6 years. We don't have to go anywhere. Our business is better than ever. Our response rates are up. People are responding to letters, selling properties, and people are buying properties like freaking crazy. So our business, COVID, I feel almost like bad saying that.
Yeah, it's the same for us.
COVID has been amazing financially, has been amazing for our business. The only thing we couldn't really do for a while is go out to eat, right? That's about it. And we had our daughter home for extra 3 months, which I'm super excited about because she's that close with me, and so loved having her at home without having to go to school. So so it's like COVID has actually been a blessing in disguise. Obviously not to the country because of all the people dying and all the havoc it has wreaked on the economy and so on. But on a micro level in our bubble here, it's been the best thing ever from a financial point of view, from a business point of view, from a sales point of view for our business.
Wow, that's great. Yeah, and same for us. I mean, with the money multiplier, I mean, obviously everything kind of crashing around creates a lot of business for us because we're in that business of guarantees and certainty. And there's not a lot of that out there. And your business is very much the same. But I love that too, because we did have this big resurgence of people moving into cities because it was the entertainment, it was enjoyable, it was fun being around everything. Now everybody's we're seeing that rural explosion, and that's not going to stop. Like, that's not going to stop at all. So I think your business is just going to keep getting busier and busier and busier.
Yeah. And we see the same thing, by the way, nationwide from all of our students. Our students are like, I don't know what they're talking about, but my business is exploding. Some of the largest deal, one of our coaches just did a deal last week where she made $300,000 in a deal, and she has another deal coming up where she makes $400,000. We have students finishing $100,000 deals. I mean, these are not normal deals. A normal deal is more like between $5,000 and $20,000, but we see these big deals out there happening more than ever, because of how people what people go to. They started buying RVs like crazy, and they started buying land like crazy. And we even if it goes back to 2018-19 levels, these were fantastic years. So our students and us, we're all like shaking our heads a little bit, but that's exciting. And so the time is now to get started with that. And we always talk about, we really found a method that allows you to create your own economy, right? You don't have to depend on the world economy. You can create your own economy that you are in control of. And that's a very kind of appealing picture if you think about it.
It's incredibly appealing. And I'm intrigued and looking at, how do I get into this and do this? So if I'm thinking that, I'm sure the listeners are thinking that. So Jack, like, how does this work? Like, if they wanted to learn more about this, if they wanted to see what your programs are, what the costs are, where do they go? How do they find you?
So the easiest way to find us is by going to the website www.landprofitfun.com. Fun with F-U-N, so no D at the end. So just having fun on land, like making land profits and having fun. So landprofitfun.com. If you go there, you'll find a whole bunch of information about it, and you can see a video and so on. Or you can also join our Facebook group, and our Facebook group is for real estate investors, for land flippers, where a lot of our students hang out. And that one is called Land Profit Generator, real estate investing group. So if you search for that, you'll find it. You request to join, accept our terms. So basically, it's a content only. We teach, we help each other. I did a live session this morning, taught several concepts, and it's just where all our students hang out and help each other do even better, and in more deals where we get like up to 20 success stories from students every single week of like first deals, first acceptance thing. It's just off the charts. And because this works literally 5 to 10 times better, in my opinion, than any other real estate method out there.
Yeah, no, and land is just one of those things, folks. It's never going to be something that's bad to invest in. I know many billionaires that became billionaires by buying land. And
yes,
this is the perfect way. So I urge all of you to take this advantage. We'll put it in the description, whether it's up or below. And we'll put that website and that Facebook group so you guys can click it, check it out. But this is the time, like Jack said, the time is now. It's now that you have to act and do this, because it's not going to wait for you. Everything is going to go on, and you can decide to sit there and ponder and wonder, what would life have been if I just took action? Well, take some action, make it happen. I said it earlier, right? It's not the knowledge. You just literally, Jack just dropped amazing knowledge on you, gave you so many golden nuggets. Now it's time to take action, and it's time for you to really go out there and do this. And like he said, like, then we just layer in different things. You layer in the money multiplier method, and that's going to provide the banking aspects for you to make additional revenue. I don't know. There's your future staring you right in the face, folks. Get out there and do this. So, Jack, it's been a real pleasure having you on the show. I am intrigued more than you'll ever know, and I can't wait to start learning more about this and put a team together to start doing this virtually, so we never, ever have to worry about talking to another contractor.
Absolutely. No more contractors.
No more contractors. Well, with that being said, folks, thank you all for joining us for another episode of the Real Estate Money School. We'll see you on the next episode.